Last Saturday, I bought a vintage brass lamp at a thrift store for $12. It was tarnished and needed rewiring, but something about it caught my eye. When I got home and started cleaning it, the base felt loose, so I unscrewed it to check the wiring. What I found inside made me drop the lamp and call my wife in tears. Hidden in a small compartment in the base was my wedding ring, the same ring I'd lost 3 years ago during the worst fight of our marriage. The ring that had disappeared the night I moved out of our house and into a hotel, convinced our 15-year marriage was over. But here's what I didn't know. Finding that ring was just the beginning of a mystery that would reveal the incredible lengths my wife had gone to save our marriage, even when I thought she'd given up on us completely. My name is David, and I'm about to tell you the most incredible love story of my life, my own. This isn't just about finding a lost wedding ring in a thrift store lamp. It's about discovering that sometimes the people we love most are fighting for us in ways we never see, even when we think they've stopped caring. By the end of this story, you'll understand that love doesn't always look like what we expect it to look like. Sometimes love looks like letting someone go. Sometimes it looks like keeping their most precious possessions safe, even when they've walked away. And sometimes it looks like an impossible coincidence that brings two people back together exactly when they're ready to try again. To understand why finding my wedding ring in that lamp was so shocking, you need to know about the night I lost it and the 3 years of separation that followed. My wife, Sarah, and I had been married for 15 years when everything fell apart. We'd been high school sweethearts, married young, built what we thought was a solid life together. But somewhere along the way, we'd stopped talking to each other and started talking past each other. I was working 60-hour weeks trying to build my consulting business. Sarah was managing our household, raising our 2 kids, and working part-time as a graphic designer. We were both exhausted, both resentful, both convinced the other person wasn't pulling their weight. The fight that ended our marriage started over something stupid. I had forgotten to pick up our daughter Emma from soccer practice because I was in a client meeting that ran late. Sarah had to leave work early to get Emma, which meant she missed an important deadline. When I got home that night, Sarah was waiting for me with 15 years of accumulated frustration ready to explode. "I can't do this anymore, David. I feel like I'm married to a ghost. You're never here, and when you are here, you're thinking about work." The fight escalated quickly. We said things we'd never said before, things we couldn't take back. Sarah accused me of caring more about my clients than my family. I accused her of not appreciating the sacrifices I was making to provide for everyone. "Maybe we should just get divorced," Sarah said finally. "Maybe we'd both be happier." "Maybe we should," I replied, and I meant it in that moment. That's when I pulled off my wedding ring and threw it across the room. I heard it hit something and roll, but I was too angry to care where it went. "Fine," Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. "If that's how you feel, then leave." So I did. I packed a bag and drove to a hotel, convinced that our marriage was over. The next morning, when my anger had cooled and I realized what I'd done, I went back to the house to look for my ring. Sarah was at work and the kids were at school, so I had the house to myself. I searched everywhere. I moved furniture, looked under cushions, checked every corner of the living room where we'd had the fight, but the ring was nowhere to be found. I spent hours looking for it, becoming more and more desperate. That ring wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of 15 years of marriage, of promises made, of a life built together. But it was gone. When Sarah came home and found me searching for the ring, she didn't help me look. She just watched me with an expression I couldn't read. "It's probably better this way. Clean break." Those words cut deeper than anything she'd said during our fight. I realized that Sarah had already moved on, already accepted that our marriage was over. I moved my things out that weekend. Sarah and I agreed to joint custody of our kids and started the process of dividing our assets. We were civil, practical, businesslike about the whole thing. But I never stopped thinking about that ring. For 3 years, Sarah and I lived separate lives. We co-parented our kids, attended their school events together, even had family dinners occasionally for their sake. But we were like polite strangers. Careful not to get too close. Careful not to reopen old wounds. I threw myself into my work even harder, building my business into something successful but hollow. Sarah seemed to be thriving. She'd gone back to school, started her own design company, looked happier and more confident than I'd seen her in years. I dated other people, so did Sarah, but nothing ever felt right. I kept comparing every woman I met to Sarah, and they all came up short. Last Saturday, I was helping my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, clean out her garage for a yard sale. She had boxes of items she wanted to donate to the local thrift store, and I offered to drop them off for her. While I was at the thrift store, I decided to browse around. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just killing time, really. That's when I saw the lamp. It was sitting on a shelf between a collection of mismatched dishes and some old books, a brass table lamp with an ornate base and a simple white shade. It was tarnished and clearly needed work, but something about it caught my attention. The lamp was priced at $12, which seemed reasonable for what looked like a quality piece that just needed some TLC. I'd been thinking about redecorating my apartment anyway, and I'd always enjoyed restoring old things. I bought the lamp and took it home, planning to spend the afternoon cleaning it up and maybe rewiring it if necessary. When I got home, I set up a workspace in my kitchen and started examining the lamp more closely. The brass was heavily tarnished, but underneath I could see that it was well made, probably from the 1960s or 70s. As I was cleaning the base, I noticed that it felt loose where it connected to the stem. I tried to tighten it, but instead, it unscrewed completely. Inside the hollow base, I could see there was something wrapped in tissue paper. My first thought was that maybe the previous owner had hidden some money or jewelry inside. It wouldn't be the first time someone had found valuables hidden in thrift store purchases. I carefully extracted the tissue paper package and unwrapped it. Inside was a wedding ring, a man's gold wedding band with an inscription on the inside, David and Sarah, forever, 6/15/2003. It was my wedding ring. The ring I'd thrown across our living room 3 years ago. The ring I'd searched for desperately and never found. I sat in my kitchen staring at that ring for I don't know how long. My hands were shaking, my heart was racing, and I felt like I was going to sick. How was this possible? How had my wedding ring ended up inside a thrift store lamp? Who had put it there and why? The only person who could have found the ring after I left was Sarah. But why would she have hidden it in a lamp? And how had that lamp ended up at a thrift store? I called Sarah immediately, my hands still shaking as I dialed her number. David, is everything okay? Sarah sounded concerned. We rarely called each other unless it was about the kids. Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. After I moved out 3 years ago, did you find my wedding ring? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Why are you asking me this? Just please answer the question. Did you find it? Another pause. Yes, I found it under the couch the next day. What did you do with it? David, why are you asking me this now? It's been 3 years. Because I just found it. I found my wedding ring hidden inside a lamp I bought at a thrift store. The silence that followed was so long, I thought she'd hung up. Sarah, are you there? I'm here. Her voice was barely a whisper. Sarah, I need you to explain this to me. How did my ring end up in a thrift store lamp? I could hear her crying on the other end of the line. I put it there, she said finally. You put it there? Why? Because I couldn't throw it away, but I couldn't keep it either. It was too painful to look at, but it felt wrong to get rid of it. So you hid it in a lamp. It was my grandmother's lamp, the one from her bedroom that I inherited when she died. I unscrewed the base one day when I was cleaning it, and I saw there was a hollow space inside. It seemed like the perfect place to keep something safe, but out of sight. But Sarah, why did you donate the lamp to the thrift store?
I didn't mean to. Her voice was getting stronger now, like she was relieved to finally tell someone the truth. My mom was helping me clean out the house last month when I decided to redecorate. She saw the lamp and said it was old and ugly, and that I should get rid of it. I tried to tell her I wanted to keep it, but she'd already put it in the donation pile. By the time I realized what had happened, she'd already dropped everything off at the thrift store. I went to the store the next day to try to buy it back, but they said someone had already purchased it.
Sarah, you kept my ring for 3 years. I kept it because it was yours. Because even though we were separated, even though we were getting divorced, that ring represented 15 years of our lives together. I couldn't just throw that away. But you never told me you had it. What would have been the point? You'd made it clear that our marriage was over. You'd thrown the ring away. I thought you didn't want it anymore. I searched for hours looking for that ring. I was devastated when I couldn't find it. I know. I watched you looking for it, but I was too hurt and too proud to help you. Sarah, there's something else I need to know. Why did you keep the ring in that specific lamp? Because it was my grandmother's lamp. And my grandmother always told me that marriage was about keeping the important things safe, even when everything else was falling apart. Sarah's voice was getting emotional again. She used to say that love wasn't just about the good times. It was about protecting what mattered, even when it was hard, even when it hurt. So you were protecting my ring. I was protecting our marriage. Or at least the memory of it. I couldn't save us, but I could save the symbol of what we'd had. David, you kept my ring for 3 years. I kept it because it was yours. Because even though we were separated, even though we were getting divorced, that ring represented 15 years of our lives together. I couldn't just throw that away. But you never told me you had it. What would have been the point? You'd made it clear that our marriage was over. You'd thrown the ring away. I thought you didn't want it anymore. I searched for hours looking for that ring. I was devastated when I couldn't find it. I know. I watched you looking for it, but I was too hurt and too proud to help you. Sarah, there's something else I need to know. Why did you keep the ring in that specific lamp? Because it was my grandmother's lamp. And my grandmother always told me that marriage was about keeping the important things safe, even when everything else was falling apart. She used to say that love wasn't just about the good times. It was about protecting what mattered, even when it was hard, even when it hurt. So you were protecting my ring. I was protecting our marriage, or at least the memory of it. I couldn't save us, but I could save the symbol of what we'd had. Sarah, do you realize how impossible this is? What are the odds that I would be the one to buy that lamp? That I would be the one to find the ring? I've been thinking about that since you called. It's like the universe wanted you to find it. Or like your grandmother wanted me to find it. Sarah laughed through her tears. She always did like you better than me. For the first time in 3 years, we were laughing together. David, can we meet? Can we talk about this in person? Yes. Where? How about the coffee shop where we had our first date? Do you remember it? Of course I remember it. Sarah, I owe you an apology. Not just for the fight, but for everything that led up to it. You were right. I was more focused on my business than on our family. I thought providing for you was the same as loving you, but it's not.
I owe you an apology too. I should have told you how I was feeling before it got to the point where we were screaming at each other. I should have fought for our marriage instead of just giving up. We both gave up. No, David, I never gave up. I kept your ring for 3 years. That's not giving up. Sarah, why didn't you ever try to get back together? In 3 years, you never once suggested we try again. Because I was waiting for you to be ready to ask it. I could see that you needed time to figure out who you were outside of our marriage. I needed that time too.
And now?
Now, I think we're both different people than we were 3 years ago. Better people. People who might actually be able to make a marriage work.
Over the next 2 hours, Sarah and I talked about everything that had happened in the 3 years we'd been apart. We talked about the therapy we'd both been through, the lessons we'd learned, the ways we'd grown. I told her about how I'd learned to set boundaries with my work, how I'd realized that success meant nothing if I didn't have anyone to share it with. She told me about how she'd learned to speak up for herself, how she'd built her own career and her own identity outside of being a wife and mother. I think I needed to learn how to be happy on my own before I could be happy with someone else, she said.
Me too.
Sarah, I want to ask you something, and I want you to think about it before you answer.
Okay.
Would you be willing to try again? Not to go back to the way things were, but to start over, to build something new together. Sarah was quiet for a long time, looking at the ring on the table between us.
David, I've been hoping you'd ask me that question for 3 years, but I needed you to be ready to ask it.
I'm ready now.
So am I.
I picked up the ring from the table and looked at it. It was exactly the same as the day I'd thrown it across our living room, but everything else had changed. Sarah, I know this isn't how people usually do this, but would you marry me again? Are you proposing to me with my own husband's wedding ring? I'm proposing to you with the ring that brought us back together. Then yes, I'll marry you again. I slipped the ring back onto my finger for the first time in 3 years. It felt like coming home. We didn't rush back into living together. We'd both learned the importance of taking things slowly, of building a solid foundation before making big changes. We started dating again. Actual dates, like we were getting to know each other for the first time. We went to counseling together to work through the issues that had driven us apart. We had long conversations about what we wanted our marriage to look like this time around. Most importantly, we told our kids what was happening. Emma and Jake were cautiously optimistic. They'd been hoping for years that their parents would get back together, but they'd also learned not to get their hopes up too high. "So you found Dad's wedding ring in a lamp?" Emma asked when we told them the story. "That's right. And Mom had hidden it there?" "Yes." Jake, who was now 15 and thought he was too cool for sentiment, shook his head. "That's either the most romantic thing I've ever heard or the weirdest." "Can't it be both?" Sarah asked. "I guess. But if you guys get back together, you have to promise not to fight like that again." "We promise." We've learned how to communicate better. Good, because that was really scary. 6 months after I found the ring in the lamp, Sarah and I had a second wedding ceremony. It was small, just our kids, our parents, and a few close friends, but it was perfect. We wrote our own vows this time, acknowledging the mistakes we'd made and the lessons we'd learned. We promised to choose each other every day, to communicate honestly, to never take our love for granted. When it came time to exchange rings, I used the same ring I'd found in the lamp. But Sarah had a surprise for me. "I have something for you," she said, pulling a small box from her purse. Inside was a new wedding ring for her, but not just any ring. It was made from the brass of the thrift store lamp, crafted by a local jeweler into a simple, elegant band. "I wanted to wear a piece of the lamp that brought us back together," she explained. "Our second marriage is nothing like our first one. We're more intentional about spending time together. We have weekly date nights that are sacred. No work, no phones, just us. We've learned to fight better, to address issues when they're small instead of letting them build up into explosions. We've learned to appreciate each other's individual growth instead of trying to change each other. Most importantly, we've learned that love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every day." The brass lamp sits on our bedside table now, fully restored and rewired. Every night when I turn it off, I think about the incredible journey that brought us back together. Sarah's grandmother's lamp had kept our wedding ring safe for 3 years, waiting for the right moment to bring it back to us. It had survived a donation to a thrift store, a random purchase by a stranger, and the perfect coincidence that led me to buy it. Do you think your grandmother planned this somehow? I asked Sarah one night. I think Grandma believed in love that lasts forever, even when it looks like it's over. Maybe she found a way to help us believe in it too. Our story has had an impact beyond just our family. When people hear about how we found each other again through a thrift store lamp, they start to believe in second chances, in the power of love to overcome obstacles, in the possibility that sometimes the universe conspires to help us find what we've lost. Mrs. Patterson, my elderly neighbor who had donated items to the thrift store that day, insists that she was part of a divine plan to reunite us. She knew that there was a reason she asked me to help her that day. The Lord works in mysterious ways, she says. But the most important thing I've learned from this experience isn't about coincidences or fate or even second chances. It's about the power of keeping faith in love, even when love seems lost. Sarah kept my wedding ring for 3 years, not because she thought we'd get back together, but because she believed that our love had been real and deserved to be honored, even if it was over. She protected the symbol of our marriage when I had thrown it away. She kept safe what I had discarded. She had faith in our love even when I had lost faith in it myself. The thrift store lamp didn't just contain my wedding ring. It contained a lesson about love that I think everyone needs to hear. Love isn't just about the good times. It's about protecting what matters, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when it seems hopeless. Love is about keeping safe the precious things, even when the person who owns them has walked away. Love is about believing in forever, even when forever seems impossible.
Today, 5 years after I found my wedding ring in that thrift store lamp, Sarah and I are happier than we've ever been. We've learned that marriage isn't about finding the perfect person. It's about choosing to love an imperfect person perfectly. We still have the lamp, and we still tell the story to anyone who will listen, because it's not just our story. It's a story about hope, about second chances, about the incredible power of love to find a way. The next time you're in a thrift store, look around and wonder about the stories behind the objects on the shelves. That lamp might contain someone's wedding ring. That jewelry box might hold love letters. That picture frame might contain the only photo of someone's grandparents. Every object has a story, and sometimes those stories are about love that refuses to die, even when it seems lost forever. But there's one more thing about this story that I haven't told you yet, something I discovered just last month that makes me believe even more strongly that some things are meant to be. Because when I was researching the history of Sarah's grandmother's lamp, trying to learn more about where it came from, I found something that changed everything I thought I knew about coincidences and fate. I found a receipt in Sarah's grandmother's papers, dated 1962, for the purchase of a brass table lamp from an antique store. And on the back of that receipt, in Sarah's grandmother's handwriting, was a note that said, "For keeping precious things safe until they can be returned to their rightful owners." Sarah's grandmother had bought that lamp specifically to hide precious things inside. She had known about the secret compartment. She had intended for it to be a keeper of treasures. And somehow, 60 years later, it had done exactly what she'd intended it to do. But how she knew that someday her granddaughter would need a place to keep a wedding ring safe, and how she knew that lamp would find its way back to the person who needed it most, well, that's a mystery that makes me believe in miracles.